One out to our Layton City Council meeting tonight. It's November 4th. Our start time is 7:02. Again, we appreciate everyone being here. And in order to get our meeting going, we'd like to go ahead and have a prayer and a pledge. And this month, you'll be hearing from Council Member Clint Morris. He's going to be conducting for us. So, Mr. Morris.
If you rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we come before thee this evening as a city, grateful for the blessings that we enjoy. We are grateful that we live in this free land and grateful for our liberties. We're grateful, Father, this evening for those that protect our freedoms as well, and those here in our city who help us, our first responders, our police, fire, EMS, and those that help to keep us safe. We're grateful for this opportunity to discuss the business of the residents of Layton. We are grateful for our residents and pray that thou would continue to bless us. We're grateful for the precipitation that we've received as well. Help us this evening to be wise. Help us to be able to have civil dialogue and be able to come to good and wise decisions. And these things we pray and do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Morris. Okay, Council, we do have some minutes that we need to take care of. So hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the minutes. And if you have any corrections, I would appreciate it if you bring it to our attention. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion on the acceptance.
Madam Mayor, if I could make one slight amendment, Kim, on page 5, mentions that I expressed concern with Mr. Crane's remark that this was the most important vote asked of the council, maybe reiterated. I have no concern about the vote that was taken. I just want to make sure it's reflected correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Council, any other questions or changes? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Okay, just first of all, there was a minor grammar error or not an error, just an addition that needed to be added, and I've talked to Kim about it. It doesn't change the minutes at all. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Layton City Council meeting of July 15th, 2021, and the minutes of the Layton City Council work meeting of September 16th, 2021, as written with the change that Councilmember Bloxham has suggested.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our municipal announcements. So, Council, do you have any announcements here? I know typically Councilman Thomas, being the representative for the Parks and Rec, probably has some.
Yeah. Is this on?
Mm-hmm. It's on.
I'm sorry if the mic's on. But on the 20th, there's a turkey bowl, which may affect anybody that wants to go bowling. Registration's open right now. Fills up pretty fast. Fun activity. And yes, you can win a turkey. On the 21st is an Interfaith Concert at LHS. I believe it starts at 7. It's always the Sunday before we light the park. And they have a little lighting ceremony usually over by the seminary. And of course, that means the next day, which is Monday. Mm-hmm. Where's Dave?
He's hiding back
Dave,
here.
Yeah. And it's still on Monday, right? Yeah. It's always the Monday before Thanksgiving. We light up the park and all the lights here. And if you've never experienced that, it's probably one of the funner things to do. Make a tradition with your family on it. So other than that, I think we're fine. Except I've been asked by the council to make note that it's the mayor's birthday today. And
Many more?
she is accepting gifts, so if you want the fun time.
Don't believe what he says.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. That's pretty embarrassing, but thank you very much. In addition to that, I think we also want to mention that, we have our Veterans Day program this year. And there'll also be a parade. Our Veterans Day program will be on that Saturday after. So that would be the 13th. We do have a parade. And there's going to be a new parade route. Basically, east here on Wasatch Drive is where it will start. It will come down Wasatch Drive, cross over Fort Lane. It will go up into the circle through Constitution Circle, come back down out onto Wasatch, and continue down Wasatch and disperse at Hawthorne. So being that this is a veterans recognition, I hope you can help pass the word, and let's try to make sure that those streets are lined with folks showing our appreciation. And then after the parade, there will be a program back up here at Constitution Circle that's put on by our Parks and Rec folks. So again, thank you, and let's all show our support there. Any other announcements?
Yeah, I have one. I'm on an email list with the Highway 89 project, and this one's a pretty impactful announcement that they announced that as early as this weekend and as late as the 19th of this month, they will be closing the Antelope Drive Highway 89 junction and the park and ride at that location. So you'll have to utilize the frontage road hubs and drive or whatever they're going to call that to reach either 193 or Gordon Avenue to access Highway 89 at that point. So it's just kind of open. It's whenever they get Hobbs Drive open is when they'll close that intersection.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, that concludes our municipal announcements. And now we'll move on to some verbal petitions that need to be presented. And, we have a lot of great volunteers here in our city and some folks that have stepped up and bid on some commissions. And there's two tonight that we in particular want to acknowledge and thank them for their dedication to the city and for how much work they've put into this committee. And so if we could have Mr. Tracy Chatwin and Randy Benoit, if you guys could come up to the podium over here, we'd appreciate that. And Councilman Day. I think, so Councilman Day represents our RAMP Commission, and both of these gentlemen serve on our RAMP Commission. So I think it would be wise if we kind of give them a little tribute here. Do you have anything you want to add?
So Joy asked me if I'd talk a little bit about Tracy. So probably the first time I was aware of Tracy was probably in junior high. Me and Joy and Tracy are all in the same class. He didn't have the privilege of going to Layton Elementary with me and Joy, Whitesides Elementary. So I first became aware of Tracy in probably junior high. Tracy's always been involved with recreation and sports. I remember as a senior in high school in '79, he led the football team to the first state championship for Layton High, I believe. Mayor Stevenson didn't like it when I reminded him that was the first championship that Layton High earned. So he's been involved with sports and recreation here in the city. I believe you were on the Recreation Commission for quite a while. He has, I think, 4 girls. And I know they were involved with theater, and he spent a lot of time at the junior high and the high school, I think both with the theater part of it. And the ramp is not only recreation, it's also the arts, museums, and parks. So Tracy has served the community very well in both parts of it. And he's been a extremely good chairman for the Ramp Commission. I've said it here in these meetings before that if all of our commissions operated like the Ramp Commission, then we wouldn't have anything to worry about. So Tracy, just from me and the city we'd like to thank you for your service, not only in the Ramp Commission specifically tonight, but all the other service you've given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, it's my turn to talk about Randy, Mr. Benoit. It's more like, what doesn't he do? Randy's been in the community for a long time. He's done an awful lot of service work. He's also been on our Ramp Commission. He was one of the, well, actually, I believe both of the gentlemen here tonight were instrumental in actually getting this ramp tax on the ballot and really educating the folks as far as what the benefits could be. And I think now what you're seeing is that really coming to light. So if it hadn't have been without their dedication and work here, we wouldn't be able to continue to have all these amenities that represent our recreation, arts, museum, and parks. Randy is a real estate agent and has been instrumental in helping people find homes here as well. So, Randy, thank you. And another fun fact about Randy that a lot of people don't, well, I'm sure many people know, but Randy's also a Layton Rotarian. And he's been instrumental in helping out in all the various service projects that go on quietly in this community. And we needed this past July. We needed some help stepping up and taking care of our breakfast. And guess who was behind it? It was Mr. Benoit and the Rotarians. So, Randy, again, thank you very much. You guys have both served this community well, and we really appreciate your time on the Ramp Commission. And with that, we do have a certificate that I'd like to present. Well, I'll have Mr. Day present the certificate. Then I have another fun thing for you. So,
Ron.
okay. Yeah. Now these are. I'll speak here so everybody can hear. These are kind of a one of a kind, and the first time we've ever done this, but I think it's very appropriate. And as Councilman Day mentioned, Tracy's was very good into sports. What he failed to tell you is that he was also led the team in a lot of the basketball, still does. And so we just thought it was appropriate that he has his own sign that says Chatwin Court. And as far as Randy, I kind of wanted to have it be Randy's way, because it usually is when he's in charge, which is good. But in this case, we opted to go with Benoit Boulevard. So, Randy, thank you again. Yeah, I saw you singing.
I noticed the chat one, you didn't have winter on there.
Okay, we're not finished yet as far as our verbal petitions, and as we mentioned earlier with the Vietnam War, I have asked Councilmember Morris if he would be willing to read our proclamation that we want to present tonight as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I read this proclamation on the war in Afghanistan, we live in a special place. I think we all recognize that here in the United States and the freedoms that we enjoy. We also live in a special place in Utah, and especially here in Layton City next to Hill Air Force Base. And as you think about the war in Afghanistan, troop support and air support from F-16s all the way to F-35s have helped in that effort in the Middle East. And so we have great neighbors. We have a great relationship with Hill Air Force Base. If it wasn't for them, many of us would not even be here. And as a son of a Vietnam veteran and a Air Force brat myself, I'm grateful for this opportunity, Mayor, to read this resolution or proclamation, tonight. Whereas in 2001, our nation, the beacon and standard of freedom for the world, was attacked without provocation by terrorists, taking the lives of 2,977 innocent people the first of whom were simply going to work, traveling to see family, and in other ways moving their lives forward under the liberties afforded in this country, and then others who were responding to rescue those first victims of terrorism. And whereas to prevent additional and similar attacks, our nation sent those who exemplify love of country, its brave military members, to Afghanistan to dismantle the depraved consortium behind these attacks and to bring those conspirators to justice. And whereas these calls to duty impose upon our service members not just the weightiness of war, but the distancing of things dear to them, loved ones, peace, and the security of home. And whereas our military forces entered Afghanistan not only in an effort to pursue justice, but also to instill a spark of hope for its residents and for them to catch a glimpse as to what freedom may feel like. And stories abound that innumerable yet individual successes were had and continue. And whereas as a part of this operation, our military personnel were required to enter Iraq to seek out others who were identified as those that had schemed against our country. And whereas we solemnly reflect that during the 8 years our military was in Iraq, we lost 4,431 of our valiant service members, while another 31,994 were wounded. And whereas we remember with heavy hearts that during the nearly 20 years we exerted great effort to calm the chaos in Afghanistan, we lost 2,448 of our courageous military service members, and another 20,752 were wounded. And whereas during these operations our military faced the constant unknown as to who was friend and who was foe, endured suffocating heat, suffered relentless sandstorms, and were exposed to those who do not value life. And whereas we also acknowledge the sacrifices of their families and acknowledge that the impacts of war linger far beyond the return to home, and we hope for their healing and that they know they are loved, respected, and admired. And whereas while Layton City acknowledges that nothing can be said or done to replace the time past and the stresses borne, the city desires to share its inexpressible gratitude, pride, and support for, and pay tribute to those serving with such unselfish valor, to thank them for keeping our lives secure, for demonstrating to many the virtues and hopes found in those who embrace freedom, and for sharing the American dream. And whereas the city encourages all to maintain a mindfulness of the many sacrifices made by those in our service and their families by a continued and deserved demonstration of gratitude and honor, now therefore be it proclaimed that Joy Petro, Mayor of Layton City, and the Layton City Council do hereby proclaim November 4th as War in Afghanistan Veterans Day in Layton City. We join with local, state, and federal agencies across the country to commemorate the veterans of the war in Afghanistan and express our sincere, heartfelt thanks for the selfless sacrifice of their labors, knowing the simple, pure motive is the security of our beloved country and the security of us, its citizens, it witness whereof, and we put the seal of the city of Layton, Utah to be affixed on this 4th day of November, 2021.
Thank you very much. Okay. We'll now move on to our citizens' comment portion of our meeting. This is the time when you're welcome to get up to either end of the podium here and go ahead and state your name and address and your comments. We do ask that if you could to kind of keep your comments brief and to the point. And also, if there's an item that's on the agenda, in particular under our public hearings, then you can wait and we'll hear from you at that time on those particular items. So for right now, the time is yours to bring any comments forward.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Scott Fletcher. I live at 2729 North, 2125 East in Layton, Utah. That is the road that goes down to the Case Creek Parkway out the Adam J. Welker Trailhead in Layton. I've been a resident there since 2002 and in Layton since 1986. So I've been around a while. And I've seen a lot of changes in Layton during that period of time. I think one of the crowning achievements that we have in the Park and Recreations area is the parkway that's down at the bottom of that trail. It's a beautiful area for people to come enjoy and see. And so I'd like to really talk about that today. The original intent of that park, as we talked about earlier in a meeting, is really for a natural area for people to come and enjoy. And it's been a great asset to the city of Layton. However, this park has now become a victim of people and overuse by commercial photography, and has become very difficult to go down there and really enjoy the area. And so there are three things that we'd like to talk about, and I'm representing the community in that area on 2125, all the residents that are there. So I appreciate the opportunity. So the first thing is that because of the overuse by these photographers, that the natural flora and fauna, and quite frankly, the wildlife, and if you've ever been down there, the wildlife is just amazing to be able to see foxes and deer and everything else. And they've used this area, and certainly off the established trails has become trampled, overused, destroyed, and ruined by very, very large groups that have gone down there. I think we saw some of those pictures today and kind of verify that as going forward. They use bring props. You saw a piano. You've seen all kinds of things down there. Another thing that happens is that the people, when they come down, they change on the streets. And quite frankly, our young men and young women have seen things that would make me blush because they have change out in the middle of the road. So some things to look at. So as these folks kind of impact this natural environment, it's going to require some significant revegetation and restoration for this park to be realized back to its original intent. And so that's one of the things that we'd like to talk about here in terms of recommendations. Secondly, safety. And Mayor Petroff, you and I talked about this as we were walking out. You've seen the number of cars. I've counted over 100 cars that have been parked up and down that street. And they not only park in the street, but in front of the fire hydrants. They park in front of people's driveways because it's a steep road, and so it becomes very, very difficult to get up and down that street. And so as they do that, and with all those cars, it's creating a very congested and dangerous environment. And as I talked about earlier, when you have 20 or 30 people coming down at one time, cascading down to the park on the driveway, on that road, and you have 3 or 4 of these groups, it's only a matter of time that some young man or young woman or a kid or somebody's going to get hit. And they're going to get really hurt because people are not following really the speed limit up and down that street as they go back and forth. People drive way too fast on that street. So there's a significant safety issue. The police have been down there every single weekend during the spring and the fall, during the peak times, getting cars moved out of the way, just monitoring the situation. And so it's a drain on resources as well. The third thing is really this idea of the original intent of the park. The original intent was for this to be a nature preserve for people to come and enjoy, and we condone that. We think it's a great place to go. We think there's adequate parking as it is there. We certainly don't advocate any additional parking, and certainly not a restroom down there at all. We think that will advocate additional bad behavior, and I won't go into the details of the things I've seen along that trail, but they've been significant. So we would advocate that. So as a course of action and as a recommendation, I'd like to bring up three key things. First off, we'd like to thank Dave for pushing forward to get the red curbing done. So thank you, Dave, for pushing that forward. We really appreciate that as a neighborhood. We think that's going to help, and certainly help with the access for safety vehicles as it goes down there. That's a key factor. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. But there is a thing I would ask on that is that now we enforce the red lines. Dave Thomas brought up in the earlier meeting a point that you've got to have some teeth that are associated with. If you're going to put something in place, you need to enforce it. And so one thing would be the enforcement of those red lines that are down there. That's first. Secondly is not allowing professional photography. That will help that this natural preserve returns to its natural state. And we condone that, to not having any professional photography, because it's very difficult to monitor that if you just don't live it. We had that conversation earlier, and I think that's the way to go. So we advocate that moving forward. Thirdly, and has been talked about by the neighbors, is perhaps roping off some of those areas that have been really badly damaged, at least enough time for them to be able to restore to their natural state. Once again, the original intent of the park is for a natural preserve, so I think that becomes key. So, and then the fourth thing is really an opportunity to revisit this issue again in the future as these things get put in place. We'd like the opportunity to come back and evaluate and see if we can monitor or change them as we go forward. And maybe there's some compromises that can be made, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, we're not, we believe that it's a great park for everybody to enjoy. It's a great asset for this community. It's beautiful to jog on, to take a walk on, to bring your family to take a bike ride, but it's a beautiful place, and we'd like to keep it in that beautiful place. We'd also like to suggest that respecting the rights of the residents as well as we go through there. So the parking is just atrocious. You saw pictures, when you talk about 100 cars within a quarter mile, it's just crazy, right? So with that, I appreciate the time and look forward to seeing some action, what happens to this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone else have any other item they'd like to bring before us? Mr. Tudor?
Hello, all my friends. I am Tom Tudor, 1757 Gregory Drive, Layton, Utah, 84041. I have lived in Layton City 52 years. And to let you know just a little about some of you, I used to know about 35,000 people in Layton. And I was a Layton City police officer and then detective division. And then I retired. I even helped the fire department put out fires. And this is just to give you a little education. The next one, I was in the United States Air Force military police for 25 years as a veteran, and I still have all that at home. The third one was after that, I'm a worker. Was the Veterans Administration Medical Center, 500 Foothill Drive. We have 56,000 veterans in the state of Utah. I did stats for them and everything you can think of for the veterans. And I got happiness for that. In 1967, I was president of the Layton City Junior Chamber of Commerce. And we did everything about 50 of us did it all free. The old swimming pool, we all used to swim in the old swimming pool. I went through 3 different police stations being built here. 3, this is the best one they've ever had in the world. Yeah. So I just want, and this is the best thing for the people in Layton, Utah. This is when I come here and pay my water bill. And thanks to everybody up here, I get all the announcements on the upcoming events of Layton City Parks and Recreation. So they are doing a clap from all of you. They're doing great.
Please don't.
And one of the sad things was I had to go to many sad events, traffic accidents, deaths. And I saw on 3 nights on Channel 2 tonight that Reggie is still in the hospital from getting hit twice down here by Hawthorne and Wasatch. There is a yellow sign there with 6 yellow lights on it. there is a sign that says 25 miles per hour. And of course, I've memorized a lot of this for 30 years. So, and at the end of each of our is a 25 mile an hour warrant down there by the east parking lot. And so there's where accidents can happen. Because of the teenagers of the world, some will be spinning down here. And I had some of them as 50 miles an hour in a 25 zone. But I wish the Layton Police Department great, really, because they can't be everyone, every place. I was one policeman representing 1,000 people in the city, and you couldn't go and do everything at once. Okay. Now I have a mayor that's great. I have city councilmen that are great, and they know what justice and law enforcement and everything is. And so I wish Reggie and the girl that got ran over twice down there at the intersection, tell everybody to slow down and do 25, not 45. Okay.
Thank you.
That's my 3 minutes.
Thank you,
Thank
Tommy.
you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. On behalf of the mobile home residents of Cedarwood, Louise Brown wanted to be here. And
Do you want to state your name?
oh, I'm sorry, Brad Richens. Okay. Yeah. And I'm at 1902 East, 2125 North, Layton, Utah. And I'm also a co-resident in Cedarwood, their mobile home park. So Louise Brown not being able to be here, I believe that she had presented to the city council members and to the mayor an envelope. And in that envelope, two things. Number one were some of the thoughts, a letter of the thoughts that she had with Mr. Winkle on the agenda, which we won't talk about now, asking for the rezoning for the 193 property to be able to develop that. And her thought was that because Mr. Winkle is stating that he wants to relocate us there. And so
I don't want to interrupt you, but are you speaking then on our first public hearing item now, or did you have something new that you wanted to present?
And that's what I was going to say. We're not going to be visiting about that. That's something that the first public hearing, I'm going to talk something separately. Okay. You already have that issue or that letter.
Yes.
Secondly, in that little packet for the city council members were the comments, a list of the comments that we're appreciative of. Some of the staff and the city council had given in support of the Cedarwood relocation of the displaced population. So you're aware of those. And tonight, I'd just like to echo that. We're grateful for any help that we can get. We came to the city for two reasons. Number one, to open up dialogue, and this mic is not going well. I can go over here if I need. But number one, to open up dialogue with Mr. Winkle, and we have that. You've helped us with that. We have Mr. McConkey that we can visit with now. Secondly, we asked for a work meeting. It looked like we were going to get that work meeting a couple of times, and we weren't. But Mr. Jensen did provide a private meeting with some of the staff there, and we were able to. And at that meeting, two things that were accomplished. Number one, the development's attorney was able to present to us what was going to happen with the property that we're going to be sold. And number two, Mr. McConkey, that employee for Mr. Winkle, was introduced to us that he was going to close the park. And we have someone now to talk to, communicate with. We're grateful for that. It looked like, can I move over here? This microphone is not working.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
You might not
It's
think
bugging
that
me.
we
Okay.
can, but no.
Yeah. This one is a little bit better, I think, I'm hoping. So, again, Hello. Oh, so much better. Okay, so basically, Mr. McConkey was going to meet with each one of us and try to, strategize on how we could relocate, and we've done that. And I hear from the Planning Commission, and I hear from other sources that things are going well. Of the first 14 residents that we're trying to. By the way, I'm taking a little more because I'm taking some of their time, and I don't know if we'll have much more comment after this. But of those first 14 residents, it's going well? Not really. 8 of them are here tonight with no solutions. Of the ones that have been relocated, just wanted to share a couple with you. Number one was a military mother who has a developmentally disabled child living in the park. She abandoned the trailer, and now she's paying rent for that developmentally disabled child to be able to continue on with this process. So she has that additional burden, but she abandoned that trailer. There's also a man who surrendered 2 trailers. So that's the other 2 trailers that are surrendered. That man worked with Mr. Winkle to purchase from Mr. Winkle some of the properties for lower priced. Then he would do some cosmetic work and sell them for tens of thousands of dollars. And this occurred the last couple of years, and there was no transparency to the owners. I know because my son bought one for $25,000. And so that gentleman gave up 2. And then the last one that we know of, this apparently is what happened. There was a single woman who owed $6,000 more who was forced to sell her trailer for $6,000. $3,000 of it she took to get into an apartment. We don't know how long she can afford that apartment. The other 3 was owed to Mr. Winkle, and he took that. That movable trailer was then taxied off to Elko, Nevada to be sold for fair market value or to be used for whatever. Now, Mr. Winkle, the reason why she had that trailer, because Mr. Winkle a couple of years ago went to every one of the residents and said, if you're renting from me, you have to buy. 2 years ago. Why? To protect the interest, maybe. With that, this was the same time Mr. Winkle, as you know from your RDA minutes, was obtaining over $800,000 of the RDA funds to purchase 2 commercial sites. The same time he had tax deferments, tax abatements perhaps, and the same time that the school district was getting no taxes. So from what I'm understanding now, this taxpayers of the city are starting to pay the school district. So Mr. Winkle did know that he was going to develop. And so these residents were forced to purchase those trailer homes. So those are the 4 that are going well, if you will, that we know of. So we're here in a spirit of positivity, actually, because we met last night with our residents with United Way. And what we're doing is we're trying to make this a positive thing. We're trying to get legislation to help some of those mobile home park owners. Next week, we meet again with the United Way. We're not meeting with the NAACP, not with the ACLU that we've been approached by. We're not meeting. Yes, yet. Yeah, we're not meeting with the pro bonos. We're not meeting with the University of Utah, the media, no more of the newspapers. We're meeting with the United Way. And so we really feel like we're hoping that there's I see smirks there. I really hope that there's positive resolutions. So just kind of a little bit of during that meeting when we had, again, there was no solutions discussed. We were just dictated to and told that Mr. Winkle was going to solve all our problems. There are no problems solved. We're 2 months. We're closer to eviction now. So, just wanted to bring that up and ask in a positive way. We've asked for 2 things, and we've got it granted from the city, and we're very grateful for your help. And that's when those comments that you have supported, the city attorney had said that, they will be relocated successfully, et cetera. We're grateful for any help. We would like, I don't know if it's possible, we're asking for a 3rd thing right now. According to the Clearfield residents, the Clearfield mobile home park that closed, they bonded, got some tax money, the city, and according, if I'm correct, and I'm pretty sure I am, $1.2 million of that was used to relocate in the demolishing process. Our thought process is if we could come up, I don't know how or where, if there's any money at all, $450,000, perhaps Winkle could match that. That would give about the tax value for each one of the mobile home residents. If they had that, that would save some financial destruction and some bad things that could happen. So that's kind of what we're asking for right now. And I feel like minimally another work meeting, a meeting where we can present some of the other creative ideas. But that's what we're asking for. And I'm just really grateful again. We're grateful for the help that we've been giving. And I think some of the comments were going to be about the Mr. Winkle, the rezoning for the mobile home park. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Lo siento, I don't speak English. Mi nombre es Ana Lilia Pérez Martínez. Vivo en el parque de Cedarwood, en la 189 South Main Street, en Layton.
She's saying her name is Anna. She lives in Cedarwood Mobile Home Park. My name is Mara. I live there as well, and I'm translating for my mom.
Okay. Yo soy uno de la primera fase de salida del parque. La última reunión que tuvimos aquí, los representantes del Dr. Winkle dijeron que nos iban a ayudar. Hablamos con Michael McConkie.
So she's saying the last time we were here at the council meeting, the representatives of Winkle said that they were going to help us and assigned Michael McConkie to help us.
Pero él no nos ha resuelto nada. De hecho, llamamos y él no responde las llamadas. Nos dice que nos va a hablar y tampoco nos llama, no nos regresa las llamadas. Estamos desesperados. Estoy yo desesperada porque en marzo tengo que salir de ahí y no hay manera de cómo salirme.
She's stating that communication with Michael McConkie hasn't been great. She tries to call him, doesn't receive calls back. She's in the first phase, so she has to leave by March, and she hasn't found a solution to her problem, and there's no communication with Michael McConkie.
Yo les agradezco a ustedes porque ustedes nos ayudaron a poder comunicarnos con ellos, pero ellos no quieren llegar a una solución. El Dr. Winkle no quiere llegar a una solución. Nosotros estamos dispuestos a tener una solución siempre y cuando ellos nos ayuden, pero no nos responden.
She says she's grateful because you guys were able to give us some sort of communication with Dr. Winkle through Michael, but she's willing to do anything to find a solution to this problem that's been lingering for a long time now. She just wants answers. And Michael, the last time we were here, he said that he was going to provide answers for our questions, and our questions haven't been answered.
Quisiera ver qué posibilidades hay en que ustedes nos ayuden a nosotros para tener una solución con el Dr. Winkle.
And she would just like to receive information or a solution from you guys or help to see if this can be resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just real quick, like Chad, didn't they hire an interpreter, a Spanish interpreter versus Portugal that Mr. McConkie spoke? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, we good to go?
Yes, state your name.
It's my turn.
If it's
Nicole
on.
Malin, and I live here in Layton, 189 South Main Street. What they probably didn't tell you is that this whole situation is caused by the fact that Layton City are the ones who rezoned the property. Layton City are the ones who rezoned the property where we live. They're the ones who decided that we were going to be thrown out on the street. They're the ones who decided that this property should be redeveloped. And so now 71 families will be thrown out on the street. There is no regard whatsoever in what is going to happen to these people, their children. Where are we going to go? We don't know. Anyway, so I just wanted to make that point that Layton City are the ones who rezoned the property. And I personally believe that they are forcing the property owner to redevelop the property, which forces us out on the street. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
May I speak to that point? I think
Sure.
it's important for the balance, those that are here to understand that those statements are false, blatantly false. The city did not rezone the property. That property has been rezoned for commercial purposes for many, many years, going back into the early 2000s. What the city did do was to apply a transit-oriented development overlay over the base zone. And that was to say that if there was development at a certain time, that it needed to fit be compatible with the fact there's a train station there and it's the downtown. So this issue, I love and respect Nicole, but what she said is not accurate. That has been said before, that the city rezoned this. The city does not rezone private property. That's a basic tenet. The city gets sued if you try to do that. The city accommodates requests for a rezone of individual private property owners' property. And in this case, it was an overlay, but it does not change the fact it can be commercial or not commercial. So again, I love you, Nicole, but let's be factual. I want everybody to understand that the city is not part of this. The city has received a legitimate request from a private property owner to change the use of the property. The city has to accommodate that in a legal and responsible way. And the city is attempting to follow that process. The city's not trying to force it to happen or stop it from happening. We're trying to honor the rights that all of the parties have and handle it in a fair and appropriate way according to the ordinances that have been passed in the city.
So you're telling me that it was not the city who rezoned the property, it was a property owner?
The property owner would have originally asked for the rezone. And I don't know what time, it was in the early 2000s.
I filed a grammar request. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I filed a grammar request for those documents.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Okay, and those documents stated that the city are the ones who, there was no mention of Mr. Winkle, no mention of North Utah Holdings. There was no mention of any of the companies that Mr. Winkle has created, the 30 plus LLCs that he has created. There was no mention of them in there whatsoever.
I would assume, Nicole, I think you were extended an invitation to come in and talk with the staff, and we could explain.
That was never happened.
Explain the
No,
documents.
that did not happen.
Well, you're welcome
Thank
to do
you.
that, and I think we can explain the documents and what they actually mean. Mr. Winkle may not have been the owner of the property when that property was originally rezoned. As I say, that property has been rezoned commercial for years and years and years and years and years. The only what you must be talking about, which is a misinterpretation, and again, I think it's a legitimate one because you just don't know, was the overlay that was placed on that area, the entire area, by the city. But that is not a rezoning of the property. It's simply a guidance. If somebody wants to develop their property, there's guidance about the design and the form of it. It doesn't speak to the uses of it at all. We'd be happy to walk through that in more detail.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I wanted to maintain a residential mobile home park in that area, then now it's okay. I go ahead, just have my mobile home parked there. It's okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I was going to say,
Absolutely.
I don't believe this should be a debate. This is just a matter of you bringing up
Okay,
your
well,
concerns.
I would like to resolve this
Excuse me. We have offered and continue to extend that appointment for you to come in and talk to the staff, and you can have that discussion there, and you're welcome to. I think both sides can be there and hopefully really paint the picture on both sides. And if you want someone else present, I'd be happy to be there. But like I said, this meeting really isn't a judgment call. It isn't a point where we're going to get into a debate. We're just merely hearing your comments. But I don't want to have a debate going back and forth. This is not the time.
I understand. And I stated my comments and I was basically called back up here. So I'm open to coming in and discussing that, but I was never offered that invitation. So
well, it's open now. So
awesome.
Please
When
call.
do you want to do it?
I'll give you you're welcome to call the main number and ask for Mr. Jensen, and we'll set the appointment up.
Okay. 801-668-1955. Call me. Let's set it up and we will meet. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Is there any new discussion? Okay, seeing that there's none, let's go ahead and move on then at this time. We have, Council, we have 3 consent items to deal with.
Yep.
Item number 1 will be presented by Mr. Dave Price, which is an appointment of our Parks and Rec Commission.
Mayor and Council, this evening it's my pleasure to introduce Resolution 2147. I also have the opportunity to introduce the individuals Mayor Petro has recommended for appointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Mayor Petro has recommended the appointment of Michael Scott Quinney to serve as a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for a designated term until February 1st, 2022. The mayor recommends the appointment of Kelly Burnson to serve as an alternate member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for a designated term until February 1st, 2024. The mayor recommends the reappointment of Debbie Comstock, Steve Crago, Milton S. Herring, Kathy Blackner, and Pamela Petroff to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission as members for the designated term as defined by the resolution. The staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2147, appointing these members and reappointing the members to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Thank you.
Any
Council?
questions?
Yeah, so Scott, is he fulfilling a little bit of a leftover term then? Because this is only for 3 months, so I was wondering.
He has been serving as an alternate member and is picking up as a member now on that same time frame.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and proceed with item number B, which is an appointment to our Ramp Commission.
Thank you. And this evening, Resolution 2148 will introduce the individuals Mayor Petroff has recommended for appointment to the Recreation, Arts, Museums, and Parks Commission, or RAMP Commission. Mayor Petroff has recommended the appointment of Bridget Gerard and Bruce Logan to serve on the RAMP Advisory Commission for a designated term until September 30th, 2023. Mayor Petroff also recommends the appointment of Cameron L. Cross to serve as an alternate member on the RAMP Advisory Commission for a designated term until September 30th, 2023. The staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2148, appointing Bridget and Bruce as members and Kelly Brunson, and Cameron L. Cross as an alternate member to this RAMP organization.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
If they're here, could we find out who they are?
Okay, I see a couple of them in the audience. So those that were speaking as far as your appointments to these 2 committees, would you mind standing? Okay, why don't you just go, let's just start over here and go ahead and say your name so each one of them know.
I'm Cameron Cross.
Debbie Comstock.
Bruce Logan.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was able, council, to take part in these interview discussions with Mayor and with Dave. And Bridget, Bruce, Cameron, Michael, Kelly, they are wonderful citizens. And I told them in the interview discussions that there's lots of places and times and events for them to be sharing their time with, but they are choosing to share their time with Layton City. And we are just very grateful for you spending your free time with us and helping us do all the things we want to do for the city. So thank you very much.
Very well stated, and I'd agree. And thank you for willing to accept these positions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Once we vote on them. But thank you, Mr. Price.
If I could, I'd also like to extend a thank you to all of the commission members on both the RAMP and the Parks and Rec Commission for their service and excellent work. And to our 2 departing members, thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number C, which will be conducted by Mr. Chad Wilkinson. Again, we have another appointment that we need to fulfill, which is on our Planning Commission.
Thank you, Council Mayor. We have had a vacancy occur on our Planning Commission. The mayor has recommended that a currently serving alternate member of the Planning Commission, Jeremy Manning, be appointed to fill that position, and that as to fill Jeremy's current alternate member position, Julie Pierce be appointed to serve the remainder of that alternate term. Julie was a part of a interview process several months ago, and she was someone that continued to show interest in that position. So that recommendation is that the council approve Resolution 2149 confirming the appointment of Jeremy Manning as a member of the Planning Commission and Julie Pierce as an alternate member to fulfill the terms as outlined in the ordinance, or the resolution, excuse me.
Any questions there, Council? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I think you'll see by the resumes that have been submitted that we have a very good choice and selection of folks here that are willing to step up. And I just want to echo, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I know, Angela, you chair one of the commissions, and thank you. Okay, Council, that concludes our consent items. So I'll need someone to make a motion regarding the 3 that were presented.
Madam Mayor, make a motion on our consent items, and that motion being that the City Council approve Resolution 2147, appointing the individuals listed to the Parks and Rec Commission, Resolution 2148, appointing the listed members to the RAMP Commission, and Resolution 2149, the individuals to be appointed to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the items as presented. All the consent items, we can act on this in one singular motion. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to our public portion of our meeting. And again, this is the portion where we will be hearing public comments. But before we start that, we're going to have Mr. Chad Wilkinson go ahead and present item number A, which is a rezone request.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This first item is a rezone for property located at Highway 193 and Darlington Way. The property is shown with that red star. It's just south of 193. It's just south of Hill Air Force Base. The entire property is zoned. The entire property area, is just about right around 6 acres. But we're going to be talking about a smaller portion of that property tonight. That's just this portion. The property is currently split zoned. The zoning shown on the screen shows that 1.93 acres that's currently zoned CH. The applicants have requested that this be rezoned from CH to RMH to facilitate the expansion of a mobile home use in that area. You can see that south portion of the property, and again, this is a split zone property, is already zoned RMH. Kind of an interesting history on this property as we looked into the history of it. This property was previously zoned RMH. This is the previous zoning map. You can see that that's the outline of the property shown there. The zoning designation, that kind of crosshatch zoning area, was the RMH previously, but this was back in 1997. At the time, the property owners requested a zone change to CH to facilitate a sales use. They wanted to be able to sell mobile homes as well as have people living there. So that zoning was requested. That use lasted for a little while, no longer there on the property, but it has been vacant for some time. That was previously zoned RMH. So what we're really doing is just taking that previous zoning back to what it was. Just to talk, I'm going to go back to this map just briefly to talk about this. Our general plan, of course, has a designation for this. This part of the city is designated to eventually become a part of more of a commercial designation over time. However, at this point, those types of commercial changes would happen when we had enough of a parcel to consolidate and have a large redevelopment. This 1.93 acres is not conducive to that future use, and so this is consistent with the general plan as a holding pattern for this. It's consistent with those surrounding properties. Hill Air Force Base planning staff and command have been contacted about this request, and they are supportive of this request to change the zone from RMH to CH. And we are recommending approval as well. The Planning Commission did review this request on their meeting in October 12th, and they have forwarded a positive recommendation for the council to approve ordinance 21-27, changing the zoning from CH to RMH. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Council, do you have any questions before we open it up? Okay, seeing that there's no questions there, I'd look for a motion to open up our public hearing for item number A.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, the public hearing is now opened. Anyone who wishes to speak specifically on this topic, you're more than welcome to. Again, come up to the mic. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, certainly I'll give you plenty of time. If it's more of an individual basis, then, please, if you could, keep your comments. I hate to put a time limit on it, but technically it's 3 minutes. But certainly, we do want to hear from you. We do appreciate you taking the time to be here. So the time is now yours. Again, I forgot, you got to restate your name. Sorry, for the records.
My name's Nicole. It's Thursday, so it's Nicole. And I just want to present some questions from Louise Brown, who could not be here. And she is a resident of Layton, and she is my advocate for my situation at Cedarwood Mobile Home Park. I understand that this particular piece of property belongs to the Francis McKay Winkle family, who are the property owners of the piece of property where I live and where I purchased a structure. And it was my understanding that he was going to get this piece of property and he was going to create this magnificent mobile home park here so he could relocate some of the residents there. However, this will not be done in the 4 months where I have to relocate. I have to be out in 4 months. This is not going to be done. Anyway, so Louise Brown wanted me to present to you. She wants to say that you will consider the rezone of property on Highway 193 from commercial to mobile home zone this week. You are likely being told that the reason for this request is the landowner plans to redevelop it into a mobile home park. His purposed reason for doing this is to provide a new home site for where the families living in the Cedarwood Mobile Home Park can move their trailer homes from their current site to this, which is 189 South Main Street, to this 193 location. This is a multi-million-dollar project. This tidy plan should take care of everyone's problems, right? The landowner gets to develop another new trailer park. The city gets on with much aligned South Main project. And best of all, the billboard residents of Cedarwood have a new place where they can move their trailers. But before you breathe a happy sigh of relief, please ask the following questions of the landowner and or your city staff. Will the new park be developed in time for the Cedarwood residents to move to it before their 18-month eviction date? Given this less than perfect score of completing projects on time, how will the city make sure the landowner meets the deadline he set for his residents? Will all the residents who want to move to the park be allowed to do so? Even the ones who live in a trailer that is acceptable in its present location, but due to HUD requirements, is not allowed to be moved to another location? Or will the landowner be allowed to waive the HUD requirements so he can keep his promise to these families and convince you that his purpose for asking for another park is really to assist these families? What is the number of Cedarwood residents who will qualify to move to this new park? Estimates say that the number is about 10%. What will happen if the other 90% keep asking him this question until you receive a satisfactory answer? What is going to happen to us? What is going to happen to the other 90% if we can't move to this new fancy mobile home park up here on 193? If you grant this to him, I ask that you please promise that he will relocate some of these residents to this new mobile home park. Some of them don't have houses that can be moved up there. Some of them do. But so far, we haven't heard a single thing about what's going to happen. I still don't even know if I'm going to be able to have any type of assistance or whatsoever. It's important that you understand that the rezone request is not simple. In fact, investigation of the truth behind the request will hopefully guide you to do whatever is necessary. Please see that the purported reason for this rezone is in fact truthfully reflected in what is decided. Thank you. Louise Brown.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment?
I don't know if this is possible or not. If it's just a comment or if there is a question. The question I have is, I have a question, and I don't know if that can be answered or not by the Planning Commission, but the question that we have is, does the city in the rezoning process have the ability to set certain stipulations on the rezoning or the use of that property? And that's the question. I don't know. And meaning, could we have this part of the solution for the Cedarwood Mobile Home Park residents? Perhaps zone that with certain conditions that they would be allowed in and other stipulations. I don't know. And so that's the question that I have. The second question I have is, because we just were made aware of this, could we revisit this issue after? I would suggest perhaps we revisit this issue after several weeks so that we can get a little bit better hold on perhaps visiting with Mr. McConkey and seeing what Mr. Winkle would be willing to do in the relocation process. I feel like this could be a really big part of a solution to be able to help us relocate some of these citizens. So I would ask that perhaps the City Council put that off until perhaps we can present some more solutions either at a work meeting or public comment, because we really have some good solutions. We just haven't been able to present them. So I would ask the City Council perhaps to put this off. I'm definitely not opposed to it. I think it's a great idea, because I think it could be a tool in that relocation process. So I'm asking that perhaps the City Council put this off for a while. Thank you.
Mr. Crane?
So, Mayor, the answer to the first question is a zoning decision is generally made based on the master plan, what your master plan is. Are there sometimes contracts or agreements with the developer of property to do certain things? Yes, the city always enters into or is able to enter into development agreements, but it would have to be something that the developer would have to request, and the city is not requesting, because the actual zoning itself is really, if the master plan says that it ought to be that, then that's a very, very good rational basis for rezoning a parcel property. It's not a mandate, but it's a good rational basis for doing that. As far as the particulars go, those are usually worked out when you get your next series of applications, which are your subdivisions or your plat maps or your site plans. those all would require approval, and they go through a separate process. So the zoning itself, in the state of Utah, we don't have a thing called conditional zoning. Do we have a thing called development agreements? Yes, we do, but the developer, according to state law, must ask for those. And there must be a quid pro quo. In other words, the developer must come to us and say, I'd like to get this. If I can get this, will you help me with this, this, and this? And it usually has to do with infrastructure. So I don't know if does that help?
Well, and then I have a question then, Gary, because I was kind of confused by something I read in here. It says that, this part of it is already zoned mobile home, that they have to come for a conditional use, put a mobile home park in a mobile home zone. I was kind of a little lost on that. But that would be a step to really stack on a lot of conditions. In my mind, there's too many unanswered questions for me to move forward with this. And a development agreement, I think, personally would answer some of those questions that I have.
Well, the developer has not asked for a development agreement. And the rezone, what would be the reasons for?
Well, because part of it says that they can, part of this moving forward would be to provide these homeowners sound attenuation.
No, that could not. The developer would have to volunteer that. And,
well, it's in our notes.
In order for him to develop, he would have to volunteer that. And it will really depend on what he wants to build in there, right? And
but why was that mentioned in our staff notes?
The reason is because if a park is developed at that location at any time for any reason, then because of its proximity to Hill Air Force Base, there has to be noise attenuation. So that is not a special consideration that's been given in relation to the whole Cedarwood Park issue. That's a condition of the location of the facility. But the conditions the city, I'm not trying to be an attorney, Gary can kick me, but the conditions that are imposed as part of the zoning have to be related to the use of the property. Zoning speaks to how a piece of property can be used residentially, industrially, commercially, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The city does not have legally, you correct me if I'm wrong, the ability to impose conditions beyond whether that use is appropriate or not. So we can't say, we'll rezone it. I think what's being asked is, can the city say, yeah, we'll rezone this as long as you make sure that Cedarwood RV Park members can live there? That's completely illegal. And the city is completely out of line in that regard. So if you want to say, we're going to rezone it because we think residential mobile home park use is legitimate, but when you come in, Mr. Developer, and are going to develop it, you have to understand we're going to ask about lighting, we're going to ask about access, we're going to ask about noise, we're going to ask about easements from the base and what impact. Those are all legitimate because they're tied to the use, but we can't tie a dispute or a difference of perspective from the south end of town to a legitimate private property. He owns the property, he's asking, and our ordinances provide for it, tied to a different deal on the north end of town, even though there is the possibility, as has been talked about. We can't speak for the developer, but I think that was one of the potentials that he saw when we told him, our opinion is you need to be looking for additional places that can accommodate some of these folks that may be displaced. That's their issue. And I think that this is part of that effort. So we need to tread really carefully here.
And that isn't the reason why I'm not necessarily agreeing with this. I just think there's issues with the UDOT involvement of the street that's not answered. There's fire flow concerns. There's concerns over the rolling hills, the condition of the sewer and water lines that they will be tapping into. I think there's a lot of issues that are unanswered at this point about the condition of the property to even need to move forward with it, that I personally would rather have some answers to, and I don't know if I don't see Mr. Winkle here. Usually the developer's here to answer some questions for us. What is the process? What has UDOT told them? I mean, have they even met with UDOT? These are concerns that I have, having gone and sat in that property today, looked at the slope development. This is not just going to be, you're going to flatten this ground out. And there's issues with slope and all kinds of things. And like I said, the sound attenuation was brought up. I don't see by putting a home closer to 193 that we're doing that. The south end of the property is already done. It does drop down. That might provide some natural attenuation, but this additional 1.97 acres pushes it closer. And as I sat there, I had a nice air show go on above me. And I'm just really concerned. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, aside from the fact that, is this being built for the timeline for Cedarwood? I know we can't look at that, but I'm not pleased at this point that enough of the questions have been answered about the condition of this property as it sits to move forward with it. And I don't know if a request to revisit this later and have these questions answered is good or not.
I would, if I may, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I think, Councilmember, all of the questions you've raised are legitimate, and the staff, our job is to defer to the direction the council gives. You did rezone it, we'll move forward. If you don't, we'll move forward. But all the questions, and I think we've been through this, all of the questions that you've raised are site plan issues. They're not zoning issues. And so if the zoning is approved, there will be a proposal at some point for development, and all of the utility, all of the access, all of the issues you legitimately raised, as it is with every project, will be addressed at the site plan issue, not at the zoning issue.
But at the site plan issue, if these things cannot be met, we have a 1.97 acre piece of property that we've rezoned that can't be, again, used because it can't be mitigated. And so it doesn't revert back, correct? If the site plan shows they can't do what they need to do with the water or the UDOT concern or all of that, that stays with that land.
Madam Mayor, if I could just briefly, the staff has reviewed this. While we do need to have additional review of the utility plan, of the questions related to access and those things, we can tell you right now that UDOT's not going to allow any additional access. That's easy enough for us to answer there. So what we will do as part of that site plan process is drill down on each of those items. But staff was comfortable enough with where we were at on those questions to recommend approval. So it's not that we haven't looked at those things. We have looked at them. They're just things that are going to have to be additionally addressed and drilled down as we go through the site plan review process to figure out exactly where those water connections are going to occur. And that occurs on every single zone change that we do. We get to a level where we're comfortable that those issues can be resolved through additional review, and then we recommend approval or denial based on that. So we're to that point.
So question, if UDOT's not going to allow it and those roads are private in there, can you force the private roads to connect to a public? I mean,
they'll be doing that through easements. These were once part of this larger development, this parcel. So through easements, through this existing development, they would connect out to those public streets. So existing easements, there are existing easements for access and for all these utility issues that we'll have to work through, but that's how they'll have to access the property.
Okay. I'll go ahead and proceed. I don't know which one of you was up there first, but.
Go ahead.
One of you.
Where are we at?
Well, you guys are welcome to go
I don't
ahead
trust
and
that guy, but where are we at?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say my last comment would be that just in the situation with the Cedarwood Mobile Home Project, there's development plans and there's a master development plan, and we understand that needs to continue to go forward. The thought process would then be, can we rezone it at a later time? If this is supposed to be the master plan, we have to accept that. Could we rezone it later or not? If it's the master plan, we have to accept that. My thought process right now is that we're grateful for the public comment portion, and we would just hope that by the grace of God, Mr. Winkle would be open to helping us in that way. And we'll probably have to try to look for solutions elsewhere.
On that note, I'm selling cookies to raise money to relocate myself. Anyway, so on public television, Mr. Gary Crane was quoted saying that there would be no issue permits for Mr. Winkle to continue on with his creation of a rezoning or redevelopment or whatever of our property. So if you grant him the rezoning of this property so he can create this mobile home park, is that not granting him permits? Maybe not for the property where I live, but maybe, you're giving him a permit to build a new mobile home park here so he can have some more victims like myself. But you stated on public television, we will not grant any more permits for this guy until all these people are properly relocated. I'm not properly So I ask that the city please visit that and look at the clips of the TV program where he was quoted saying that we're not going to issue these permits, because if that's the case, don't issue this guy a rezoning for this property unless he can promise that he is going to relocate the residents of the mobile home park in Layton, Cedarwood Mobile Home Park, to this location. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, council, I'll look for any other additional comments from you. If not, we can go ahead and proceed with action on item number A of the rezone request.
Sure, I will. I'm having a little bit of hard time understanding if you're under the gun to move and there's a proposal here, even if it doesn't work out for you in the long run, why sooner wouldn't be better than later? To at least give him that option and that choice. So as a result, I'm going to make the motion that we accept the rezone application, ordinance 2127, and approve the rezone.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the rezone request for item number A. I will take a roll call vote on this. So I'll start down here with Mr. Bloxham. Seconded that, sorry. So Councilman Day?
Yes.
Councilman Bloxham?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick?
No.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Thomas?
Aye.
Okay, the vote stands 4-1 in favor of the rezone request, which hopefully can move this process along so that we can find a solution for these folks. We'll now move on to item number B of our public hearing, which is a preliminary plan for Altitude Townhomes. And again, Mr. Chad Wilkinson will present those items to us.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This next item is a preliminary plan proposal for a CTH portion of a development that's called Altitude. You'll remember this came before the council some time ago. Here's the location of the property. It's at approximately 1350 East Highway 193. Again, this is a little bit further to the east than the property we were just talking about. Just briefly, this is a picture of the zoning. This was rezoned as part of a rezone request several months ago, actually quite a while ago. We originally had a proposal that the applicant tried to implement. Grading was an issue, so they came back to the council, requested some slight tweaks to that plan, including adding a public street, which was something that was a concern prior to in the previous iteration of this. So they've come back with that proposal now. The public street is shown there on your screen. You can see that connects the Highway 193 with the streets to the north. It also provides for future connection to the property to the west to facilitate future development of that parcel sometime. This is a copy of that overall plan. Now, the council's consideration tonight is only this portion of the plan. It's the portion of the plan that includes the townhomes. The code designates the Planning Commission as the land use authority for the balance of the site. The Planning Commission has reviewed the balance of the site. That's the MU portion that has the multifamily residential that was approved at a previous meeting by the Planning Commission. And they have forwarded a recommendation of approval for this CTH portion, which is our condo townhome. You can see the units that are proposed along the north and west boundary there. There's about 42 of those townhome units that will be constructed. They all have private access. off of that public street. They have kind of smaller private driveway alley type accesses. The residences along 3025 North on the north side will also have frontage along that public street. And as far as that extends, it does end at a certain point where that gets into some of the Weaver Basin and city water properties. The townhomes on the south side of the lot will also be on what's called Jake's Drive. They'll have frontage, and those homes will front that area. They'll have sidewalk connections out to that public street on that side. This is just a few. I'm going to go through these very quickly. Landscape cut sheets. So the landscaping that will be installed in conjunction with the units. Some details of those various areas in the development. These are the proposed elevations for the townhomes. And the townhome design will allow them to make that transition from the higher elevation on the north side down to the lower elevations on the south side of the site by providing some of those townhomes that have this 3-story plan that will allow them to build that into the slope and provide that transition. You can kind of see that on that cross section on your screen. You can see where it's been built into the slope to provide that transition and help with that grading issue. Again, the Planning Commission did review this as part of their review of the remainder of the property. They did recommend that the council approve this preliminary plan for the CTH portion, and be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Council, any questions?
So, Chad, I have one. Living in an area that has 43% open space, and this townhome area has 43% open space, how are they going to handle the amount of turf, especially considering this it's on a slope and stuff? Are they under our new ordinance and restricted by the amount of turf? And because I got to tell you, 43% open space, if it's grass, is a whole lot of grass that's going to get watered.
Sure. This was initially approved under the old ordinance, but we have the applicants here, Representative. Maybe you could speak to the landscaping scheme. We would certainly encourage them to meet our new water-wise landscaping, but I'll give them a chance to talk about that.
If memory serves, the Planning Commission may have made that a condition of approval, that the landscaping for the other 2 zones be the new drought tolerant and more sensitive landscaping. We are absolutely planning on doing that, whether or not the code requires or not. We intend on doing that. I believe that the retention basin has to be grass, but for example, that trail you can see on your screen that will be on the east end, we anticipate not doing grass there, but just have some more drought tolerant landscaping there and trying to just retain the turf to areas that are more for functional use.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question, Madam Mayor. Are the townhomes, are these rental or are they for sale?
We do not anticipate selling them. The plat that we have that has come in has all the townhouses on a single. Well, I lied. It might be 2 parcels because the public road separates them. But we anticipate, at least for the time being, to retain ownership of all the townhouses and rent them.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing that there's no other questions, Council, I'll look for a motion to open the public hearing. Well, our public hearing's open, but in particular on item number B, and accept public comment at this time.
That'll be it.
Okay, thank you. The public portion of this meeting is now open, so you're welcome to come up and make a comment. Again, state your name for the records.
As a citizen of Layton City, Utah for 52 years, I pay all my taxes, all the money. So I want to know in these projects, please, if you're going to be spending Layton City money on the street lights, on the traffic lights, and other expenditures. Thank you if anybody wants to answer me.
Tom, that's a great question. The city requires the developers, anything internal to the subdivision is put in at the cost of the developers. And then but they're not private. Usually those, that infrastructure that's put in, then after a year period of time, if it meets the city standard and has been installed properly and maintained properly, then the city will take it over. And the city will have ongoing maintenance responsibility for those public streets and for the lights and so forth. But all of the upfront costs are paid by the developer as part of the cost of development. Great question, Tom.
Thank you for
for a very good answer.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak on item number B, this preliminary plan?
This wasn't the purpose for me coming here tonight, but since go up and down 193, I had a fundamental question. So the master plan has to have some elements of traffic patterns and the use of natural resources and so forth. And so I'm not aware of that master plan and if additional units, because as I drive up and down that street on 193, quite frankly, it's getting incredibly busy. I mean, we've got Hill Air Force Base traffic. You've already looking at putting additional mobile homes in. You have another 43 units going in. I mean, it's just up and down. So I'm unaware of the master plan and how that fits and can allow for that many additional cars, additional people, additional resources. So I'd be appreciated if I'm happy to come in and see it, but I just don't understand it.
Sorry to talk so much this evening, but yes, that's a great question again, sir. The city has master plans in a variety of areas. We have an overall master plan called the general plan, which deals a lot with planning and zoning and proper uses in proper locations. But then for each of our pieces of infrastructure, so for example, for transportation, which is roads, for sewer, for water, for storm drain, we have individual master plans for each of those that look out. Sometimes a 10-year period is stipulated by state law for the legislature. Other times we look out to 2040, which most of our transportation plans are done in conjunction by ourselves and working closely with UDOT and the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which is a regional transportation planning corridor. So we look at all of these corridors, both built and those that we build in the future, to look and see what their carrying capacity is, how many cars per day at peak times, et cetera, et cetera. There's a complex formula. And then that's looked at, compared against the zoning, the general plans of the city that show this can be residential, this can be commercial, et cetera, and then make sure that the requirements or the suggestions with regard to the capacity of that infrastructure is adequate to meet the demand. In some cases, it's not, and that means that as part of future development of the community, there needs to be additional roads or an expansion of roads, and those are all contemplated. So the carrying capacity on 193 is easily sufficient. There's enough delta in there to accommodate these developments and what's provided for. But
so I appreciate the answer. Thank you. I'd love to come in and see that document. Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Most of our plans, the only exception to that is water, and because of the security nature of people who want to affect your community by affecting your water systems.
I got it. Yeah.
But your transportation, everything else, absolutely would be love to.
Great.
To
Does
make
it
that
just
available
contact
to you.
your office then?
Yeah, they'd be happy, or Public Works, but Chad, any of us would be happy to.
Thank you.
Make that available.
And specific to this project, UDOT has put some guidelines in place for safe entry and exit in and out of that subdivision. I mean, that was one of the concerns when this initially came, was about the traffic and the ingress and egress. And so UDOT has come up with, right in, right out only, and they're going to do a center median and stuff like that, so that we're not putting.
That's already in.
Well, that's right. It is already in.
Yeah.
But primarily to keep, the safety of those that are going to build and move into those places. That is highly thought of when we look at these things.
Yeah, I apologize for jumping in, but there is a safety element all up and down that street, right? There's other neighborhoods that it's very difficult to go in and out of, and that's part of the issue. So I appreciate just seeing what that is so I understand.
I'll just quickly put a plug in for LaytonForward.org too. There's links to all those plans. It's a kind of a innovative website that our planning staff put together, very interactive, and there's links to all those plans on there. LaytonForward.org.
Okay, thank you very much. That's exactly what I was thinking. Most of this is online for you to review. Okay. Is there any other comments? If not, council, I'll look for an action item on number B to close the public hearing and take whatever action you so desire.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we close the public hearing and that we approve the preliminary plan for the altitude townhomes on Highway 193.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded by Councilman Morris. Okay, again, this is a public hearing, so I'll take a roll call vote. I'll start down here with Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilman Bloxham.
Aye.
Councilman Day.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It passes unanimously. Okay, that concludes the public hearing of this council meeting tonight. I do have an item here of unfinished business, should anyone want to bring up any items of discussion. I do know that in our prior work meeting, we did want to speak of one topic, and so, council, I'm open at this time. It was going to be part of my mayor's report anyway, but I know that you openly want to discuss what we can do regarding the safety in the city. So with that, I'd say let's go ahead and deliberate.
I think we have all been given quite a bit of communication from residents regarding this. I think it's kind of really struck the citizens to the core. And I just was curious, I'm sure this is not new discussions. It's not a new problem. I'm just curious what we can do as a body, with staff's expertise on what we can do to hope something like this can't happen, or to put up some sort of other guidelines or barriers or whatever we can. So just more of a discussion. I don't have any ideas. They all get sent to me, all based on, additional crosswalks and flashing. And I know that's based on regulation and things like that. So I'm just curious if we could, as a staff, maybe look at some things that we can do as a city, and obviously in concert with the school district and with UDOT.
So my question is this particular intersection is one that I brought up, or this crosswalk I brought up before. When we had our meeting with our legislators, and I don't remember if it was this year or the last year, and it was really dark when we came, 7:30 in the morning, whatever. And that light seemed to not be, real bright. And then, of course, this particular accident occurred in the rain. And so I don't know what the visibility is, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that not the same type of light that was on Fort Lane where the other young lady got hit? Was it not the same type of flashing light at that time?
I apologize to interrupt. No, the flashing light was put up at Fort Lane and over here proactively as a result of that happening.
So I know these are solar run, and even as I've been in and out of the complex a couple of times today during the daytime, and the flashing lights are not. You really have to strain to see those lights flash. I'm wondering if they're strong enough. And also parking, as I came up today, it is redlined right by the crosswalk, but it's still very difficult to see that sign with cars parked even where they're allowed to be parked, because there's not a lot of, it's not your traditional flashing light. It's more of just I don't want to say a sparkle around a sign, but it's not what we traditionally see with crosswalk signs. It just doesn't seem bright enough. And then, like I said, to add the issue of the rain, I know we've gotten a lot of comments about, starting school late. Well, I made the mistake of coming over here the other day on late start, and I could not believe the number of kids that were crossing the street illegally. So, I'm not sure a crosswalk at this intersection is the appropriate location. Some of this may need to be enforcement. The number of people that are jaywalking, getting to and from school is probably way more than it needs to be. And these kids are walking out without even looking, darting between cars, cell phones in hand. I mean, so part of it is a pedestrian issue. Part of it is a speed issue. 25 is, whoever said it earlier, is not always adhered to on this road. But part of it is the school district's problem. And when this school was built, like Tom and we were mentioning in the meeting earlier, a lot of these schools didn't allow driving at the time. And this school is at capacity. So many kids have driver's licenses now that campus can't handle the number of cars for the number of kids that are driving. And so I don't know how the school district answers that. I kind of drove around and looked at their property today, and I don't know if they've got any place. I know at one point they did add a small parking lot just east of the seminary building in recent years. But I don't know that they've got any other place to even put additional parking, because you don't want it anywhere where the kids are going to have to cross the street like they do now, park down Hawthorne and down into that subdivision, or, in front of the park and stuff like that. So I don't know that there's an easy answer. As far as the location of a crosswalk, I do know that following a lot of events here at the park, we don't utilize either of the two crosswalks when we leave Ed Kinley, at night, or the 4th of July or whatever. Those are not the normal spot to seem to cross from here to the high school. And so I don't know if that needs to be possibly, and that's been some of the suggestion, is looking at is the crosswalk in the adequate location. I know down there at Hawthorne, for those kids that park on Hawthorne, or those coming from the library over here, but a lot of kids park on the street north, and they're not going to walk all the way to the seminary building and cross over. And there's nothing but to dart across the street for them to get from where they're parking across the street to the school. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think personally, I would like to see that the brightness of that stop or that yield sign, crossing sign looked at.
Okay. And I know that I've had this discussion. I know we've got our staff already looking into that. There is an issue, though, like everything else, as far as the supply chain. So as they kind of looked at some options there, I know that's going to become a problem as far as how quickly can respond. But perhaps in addition to this, myself, and I'm saying this in a very positive way, is I do know that probably a couple of years ago, we did have a demonstration on the different type of illuminations you can have out of those lights. And in particular, I do have to say, I did see the demo and I was very impressed with it. But, the Dark Skies folks, they did show the demo on how the different lights, even though it's a trajectory down, that you can still see through that light and be able to see movement versus the brightness of a light and not being able to see the distance. And I'm not saying that came into play here, but I think that that's another option we could maybe look at as well. I mean, we don't have the answers right now, but I think the key thing is let's kind of do some research and see what we can do to find out. So, I mean, that's really part of this discussion, is to let everyone know that we're actively, we genuinely feel bad about the circumstances and what took place, and we want to find the right solution, but making a quick decision isn't necessarily the right decision. So anyway, anyone else?
One of the suggestions that was made by residents was the staggering of the school, which would be a school district issue. But right now, the late start is already screwing up the buses. They're, because of the late start, those kids are always late getting to school because the buses are still trying to get the elementary school kids. So I'm not sure a staggering is an issue or an option either. Like I said, I think it's a discussion that has to occur between the school and the city. But I do think there needs to be either some enforcement or some education with the students. Hopefully this was a little bit of an eye-opener for them. It's an unfortunate way to have a point drawn home, but it is an issue with those kids not crossing the street appropriately. And they're old enough to know that they should be crossing somewhere.
I know Councilman Morse would like to.
I'll just echo, first of all, this is tragic once again. I think we've had this one and then the one earlier in the year, or no, just a couple of months ago, not by the school, but over on Main Street, and the one a couple of years back. And you need to be careful what you say. It's in the dark. I remember two Mondays ago, these don't work. I can hear me, but it's just, you're in and out.
We can hear you.
But a couple of Mondays ago, we had the big rainstorm and we were coming up from Salt Lake. And you can't see the roads, or you can't see the lines. You don't know what lane you're in. You are blind, and everybody's blind. And the traffic on I-15 was down to 50 miles an hour. There were some people that like to go a little quicker in the fast lane, just taking their life in their own hands. But you just couldn't see. And does it rain like that every day? No, that's a once in a. It just doesn't happen all the time. And to say, okay, we want to make sure that I-15 is ready all the time for that instant so that everyone's going to be safe, that's not a solution either. And I am all for having more lights and illuminated and to try to help with the crosswalk over here. It was dark. It was raining. You can't see. Kids are running across the road. They do that. And I think Council Member Fitzpatrick is right. The students are seeing this, like they got to talk to each other about this, and that they're the ones with the behavior. A crosswalk's not going to change that behavior. And, we have crossing guards and we have the school zones, but those are for the elementary kids because they're walking to school. And it's just a tragic accident. Can we improve? Yes. Can they improve? Absolutely. But it's a tragic accident. And it's unfortunate. And Mayor, your point of just let's do something. It's probably right. Let's figure out what the right thing might be. And it might not change anything, but to react and change school schedules and change the world, that's not the answer either. No. It's just tragic.
All right. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, thank you. I was just going to say we concur. As we've talked about it internally, and we are looking at one of the things I think is important, which you've all touched on in your own way, is to wait and see. There are certain facts around this issue that are not, there hasn't been the investigation hasn't been completed, and so I think that will add a little clarity to this specific issue, and there'll certainly be a larger issue than the specific facts of this in terms of what to do. But I think that will help inform, and I've talked to Chief Swanson that at the appropriate time to circle back and have this discussion so there's a clear understanding of what happened and then what we can do from a public safety education, whether it be lighting or signage or discussions, et cetera, to help avoid not just this specific scenario, but others like that. Mm-hmm. And so we look forward to doing that. We just felt like it's better to wait till the facts are established, and then sometimes we end up with solutions to problems that don't fit the problem, if you will. And that's natural in an emotional situation like this.
When something like this happens, counselors are provided for the school. And I'm wondering, a lot of this now is out in the media, so we don't know what happened. We don't see a report. It's still an ongoing investigation, but the media is now investigating it for us, which is unfortunate. But maybe an outreach by Mayor Petro, do they have an assembly coming up? You can go and you can address this. And, we are sorry. We want to help. What can you do? And an outreach to the kids, and leave the rest of us out of it and just go have a chat with them and see what you can accomplish by talking to them about the problem. Instead of adults trying to change and fix it, let them figure it out.
Well, that's a good point. And I know in some of my responses, I kind of let them know that, hey, this is something that we'll definitely work collaboratively with all parties, because I don't think there's a single one solution, but there are several that we can look at. And, it may see that I know that we have a lot of lights on that street already. It's just a matter of, are they functioning? Do they illuminate it properly? That's the only word, is properly. I mean, I'm not going to get into any, whether it's bright enough or on long enough and all that good stuff, or whether we should change daylight savings times. I mean, that's not really the case here, but I think we will, do all that we possibly can. And I think you've heard from the staff here that they're already trying to address as much as they can. But from our point of view, we definitely want to jump in there, and I'm certainly behind it. I mean, I'll do what I need to. But you're absolutely right. This is an eye opener for the kids. It'd be good to kind of maybe open that dialogue. And not only that, I'm going to come out and say that it seems like this year speeding seems to be the topic as well. I mean, all of our issues have been based around speed. I'm not saying that's the case here today or what took place, but I just genuinely want to encourage everybody to slow down, obey those speed limit lines, those speed limits that we have, and in particular school zones, and especially when they're in session. But I've had more speeding complaints this year than ever before. So anyway, I think that's just something all of us need to look at. Okay, anything else, you guys?
Just one thing. The pros are here,
Yes.
okay? But we're evidently put here to make sure the pros take care of what they need to. And so I think the thing is to let them get their hands around it. Then we talk to them and say, what do you come up with? Or, how do you think? And then we can make good decisions. It's none of us are proud or whatever the word might be of what everything we've done. There's holes everywhere. And if we can find one and plug it, good for us. Mm-hmm. But I believe that as we let those that know what they're doing, and that doesn't mean we don't give suggestions if we think something works, but let them do it, and then we can make sure we ask about it so it doesn't become a forgotten topic, in the future. So.
Okay. I agree. And I know that past performance has shown that this staff has listened and they have taken response. And case in point, down on 2200. So,
Exactly.
we will kind of work through this like we have with all of it. So thank you for your time, you guys. And if there's anything else, say it. Otherwise, I'm saying let's go home.
I got one thing on, you mentioned 2200, Alex, that one light on the parkway down there. The stop sign.
The two-way stop.
Yeah, it was brought up a couple years ago. In my opinion, the side streets now should be stopped, but not the parkway, because there's getting to be a lot of traffic down there. And there's that one stop sign that you still stop on the parkway that a lot of people blow through because they don't see it in there. Is there something we can do with that?
You're talking about 1700?
I think so.
Clarify.
Yeah.
Right there by the pond?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a four-way.
Yeah.
It's a four-way stop, but I don't know that many people on the parkway are stopping sometimes.
I can tell you, living there, when we turn left, if somebody's coming, we don't go till they stop because we see that stop sign run all the time on the parkway.
My question is do we even need the stop way on the park?
Yeah, we this is from memory, but we actually looked at that, and at one time I think I felt pretty comfortable based on an initial review by engineering that would make sense, exactly what you've talked about. But when engineering did the analysis, the warrant analysis, it showed that it should stay a four-way. So now that's been, in fact, I think it was former Mayor Stevenson Senator Stevenson, or his wife, must have been his wife because I listened to her more than Jerry, but that asked about that very same issue. And but I'll revisit that again. It's probably been 10 months, a year, or something like that. But like I say, we thought that makes sense and it should be, but there was an engineering concern for not meeting warrant. But anyway, I'll go back and revisit that and ask that question again.
Okay. Thank you. We done? 1 minute? Okay. And then we do want to go.
Yeah, stand right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're pretty much done anyway. Go ahead.
Night, you're always a police officer. So I got down here at 6 o'clock to survey the Hawthorne Street and right by the library and across the street where the Big Duck is and where the tennis court is and all that. I sat there for 1 hour and counted 14 kids walking across from the high school, shade-jacking, and hopping and running across. So the next one that gets killed, you'll know why. And then I've been to children in my many years, dead in the wrecks. So I've had a lot of mental. And I saw that tonight and I says, no wonder. Then I looked up and took a picture of the sign that's down there. It's in 2 yellow, 2 yellow, 2 yellow, and there's 6 there. Same way at the other end, there's 2 yellow lights blinking. And the other thing is there's a picture of a lady and a child on that yellow sign that every one of you will know about, because there's two of them down here, one on Hawthorne side and one where you go over to the tennis courts. Then you got the other one over here. We was talking about the east parking lot. It's full with 250 cars in there, and it's full. And those kids park all the way around in the Layton Commons Park, and they get to throw their drinks and cigarettes and everything in there. So the Layton, so I say workers to go around there on the scooters and clean it up, and they're doing a good job. And then they have a crosswalk there. And the Layton High School students go back and forth, back and forth. Most of you remember when it was an LDS church that they taught down there. And they're still going across there. And they come from the Fort Lane and Gentile speeding there, usually about 40 miles an hour through there. Some of those students have a lot of near hits. So they're going to be us loading them in the ambulances again like I did for 20 years. And down here especially, I was really worried. I turned on TV tonight, Channel 2. They'll have the news at 10 o'clock about Reggie and her grandma. And they got legally a picture of her in her bed at the hospital, permission by the family. As you know, I told all of you, I know thousands of people in my city.
Yeah, you do.
For 52 years. You know, even Halloween and trick-or-treating, giving them 100 pounds of candy at the door. But I love it.
Well, I want to go eat my cake, Tommy.
No, if anybody wants to know about traffic, I can tell you in every intersection in this city. And I'm sorry about that one down there.
We all are.
I had to take care of the lady that got killed up there at Main Street and Angel.
Yeah.
By that gas station.
Well, again, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here, but we're ready to head.
Yeah, thank you.
If you stay right there, I'll bring you out a cupcake. Stay right there and I'll go get you one. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen.